Welcome to the Economist in Your Ear podcast. Today we're unpacking a truly pivotal moment in the world of global intelligence. The appointment of Blaise Matroli as the new head of MI6, known internally, of course, as C. Now, the immediate narratives you might have seen splashed across headlines often highlight two significant aspects. She's the first woman to hold this incredibly influential role, and she hails from the service's technology directorate, the legendary Q branch. It conjures images straight out of a classic spy thriller, doesn't it? A new era of secret agents armed with impossibly clever gadgets.
It absolutely does, and the sense of historical significance is entirely warranted. This is a genuinely transformative moment for the UK's Secret Intelligence Service. But what's truly fascinating when you look closer is that while the public's imagination might be captivated by these breakthrough achievements and the allure of futuristic technology, the actual implications of her appointment are far more layered and complex. It's really quite intricate.
So not just the surface level stuff.
Not at all. This isn't merely about a new chief. It's about profound strategic shifts, deep-seated cultural challenges that have, frankly, long plagued the agency, and even some inherent paradoxes within the world of covert intelligence that her tenure will undoubtedly bring into sharp, sometimes uncomfortable, focus.
Paradoxes. Interesting.
Yes, her appointment really does speak to the very future of spycraft itself, and it demands a closer look beyond that initial excitement.
Okay, let's unpack this, because when we talk about Blaise Matroli, we need to go beyond the first female C headline, as genuinely historic as that is. What truly makes her profile so distinct?
Right.
So different from the long lineage of MI6 chiefs before her. What are the details that truly set her apart?
Well, what's remarkable about Blaise Matroli's ascent, beyond the obvious gender milestone, is her professional trajectory and the core nature of her career within MI6. For decades, the path to C was often through, let's say, a more diplomatic background. Officers who might serve abroad in overt roles, fostering relationships, engaging in what some have called intelligence diplomacy.
Okay, the sort of ambassadorial type almost.
Exactly. Matroli, however, represents a profound departure from that mold. She is, at her core, a career case officer.
Case officer, so boots on the ground.
Very much so. This means she's a seasoned field agent, someone who has spent a significant portion of her career, particularly through the turbulent 2000s, in critical, often dangerous operational zones. Think about her time in Iraq, specifically at the Basra station after the British invasion in 2003.
Right after the invasion, yeah.
And then her subsequent postings across the volatile Gulf region and within Europe. This is someone who has literally been on the ground in hostile environments, actively recruiting and running agents, facing the gritty, often brutal realities of espionage in a post-9/11 world. It speaks to a very hands-on operational mindset that is now at the very top.
That's a huge contrast to what we might typically expect from the head of a sophisticated intelligence service. It suggests a leader deeply attuned to the sharp end of intelligence gathering.
Absolutely.
And her generation, the specific era she came up in, seems to play a significant role in shaping that hands-on approach, doesn't it?
Absolutely. At 47, having joined MI6 in 1999, her formative experiences within the service were intrinsically shaped by the world after the September 11th attacks. This marks a crucial generational shift from many of her predecessors. Previous chiefs often rose through the ranks during the Cold War.
Right, a very different world.
Where the global threat landscape was dominated by state-on-state espionage, the ideological battles between communism and the West, and, the ever-present shadow of nuclear deterrence. Their training and operational experiences were steeped in that particular context.
Understood.
Matroli, by contrast, cut her teeth in an era where counterterrorism and counterproliferation became the paramount concerns. Her first job, remarkably, involved what she herself described as really deep science related to nuclear technology.
Wow. Straight into the deep end, scientifically speaking.
Pretty much. This early exposure to the intricacies of WMDs and the technical complexities of preventing their spread set an early and enduring precedent for her technical inclination, long before she formally led Q Branch.
So it's not simply a recent assignment that landed her in Q Branch.
No.
Technology has been a core, foundational part of her professional DNA from practically the very beginning.
Exactly right. Her leadership of MI6's Technology Directorate, the renowned Q Branch, since 2021, isn't a mere addition to her CV. It's the culmination of a career-long engagement with technological innovation as a vital enabler of intelligence. She hasn't just embraced tech, she's been a pioneering force, actively pushing for the deep integration of artificial intelligence and sophisticated data-fused human intelligence, or HUMINT.
Right, Hume.
Across the entire UK intelligence community. This isn't just about MI6. We're talking about a unified approach with agencies like MI5, the Security Service, and GCHQ, the government signals intelligence and cybersecurity arm.
So across Whitehall push.
A major one. And this wasn't always a smooth process. Reports suggest she frequently clashed with some of the more traditional old-school officers who perhaps harbored skepticism about allocating significant resources to these new capabilities or who believed they might, dilute the agency's core human-centric mission.
Understandable friction, I suppose.
Perhaps. But her high visibility at tech conferences and the high regard in which she's held by prominent tech executives in both America and Europe. These are clear indicators that her tech credentials are not just a perceived strength. They are a validated and core asset for MI6 in the digital age.
Okay, let's move on to the broader symbolism and the profound cultural shift that her appointment represents within MI6. Historically, MI6 has often been perceived as a very traditional, arguably even insular male-dominated institution. What does her promotion mean in that wider context for the agency's internal culture?
Well, it's important to acknowledge that while this is a truly landmark moment for MI6, its sister agencies had already paved the way. MI5 appointed its first female director general, Stella Reddington, way back in 1992.
Right, a long time ago now.
And GCHQ appointed Ann Keese Butler as its first female director just last year. So Metrole's promotion brings MI6 into alignment with the broader UK intelligence landscape, signaling a collective, unified move across the entire intelligence community towards more diverse leadership. This isn't an isolated event for a single agency, but rather a culmination of a larger ongoing trend.
And when we delve into the historical realities, it truly highlights just how far MI6, and indeed the wider intelligence community, has had to come. There's a stark, almost unbelievable reality about historical inequities that makes this appointment even more profound, isn't there?
The historical context here is indeed quite startling, even shocking to modern ears. Until the mid-1990s, MI6 actually had a policy that required female officers to resign upon marriage.
Required them to resign upon marriage.
Yes. Can you imagine the sheer waste of talent? As intelligence historian Dan Lomas pointed out, this policy led to the tragic loss of a very talented generation of women from the service. It's almost unfathomable that just a few decades ago, the choice between a brilliant career in MI6 and a personal life was so starkly presented to women.
Incredible.
Fast forward to today, and the transformation is profound and undeniably rapid. Currently, 3 out of MI6's 4 director generals are women.
3 out of 4. That's significant.
It really is. This isn't simply about hitting a quota or engaging in tokenism. It signals a deep, systemic, internal transformation, reflecting a genuine shift in recruitment, retention, and promotion practices. As the new C, Metroele is uniquely positioned, not just by her gender, but by her background, to dismantle what internal surveys have previously identified as a pervasive male safari culture within the agency.
Male safari culture, what does that entail exactly?
Well, it suggests a culture perhaps characterized by informal networks, maybe unconscious bias, a lack of clear pathways for diverse talent. It's something that has historically contributed to significant retention problems. Her leadership can go far beyond what any mere HR memo or policy update could achieve. She can actively foster an environment where talent is recognized and nurtured regardless of gender, truly improving the agency's overall effectiveness.
So this isn't just about public perception or optics. It's about a foundational change in the very culture and, by extension, the operational effectiveness of the organization.
Precisely.
And speaking of foundational changes, her selection also clearly hints at a significant tilt towards hard espionage and an intensely operational focus for MI6.
Absolutely. The very choice of Metroele, a career insider steeped in the realities of field operations and cutting-edge technology, indicates a deliberate strategic shift for MI6. It signals a move away from what has in recent years been a growing trend towards intelligence diplomacy.
Explain that term a bit more. Intelligence diplomacy.
It essentially involved spy chiefs engaging in high-level back-channel talks with foreign counterparts, building trust, sharing intelligence globally in more overt ways. Think high-level meetings, strategic dialogues. While intelligence diplomacy certainly has its value in fostering international cooperation and managing geopolitical tensions.
Sure, it has a place.
It's not Metrooli's primary expertise, nor, it seems, is it the central strategic direction the Prime Minister wishes MI6 to pursue under her leadership. The focus is shifting back to the nuts and bolts, the core business of covert human intelligence gathering.
And this becomes even clearer when you consider who her main rival for the top job was. Dame Barbara Woodward, the former ambassador to China, that's a fundamentally different professional profile, isn't it?
Indeed it is, a stark contrast. The selection reportedly came down to these two formidable women, each representing a distinct strategic direction for MI6. Dame Barbara Woodward, with her extensive diplomatic background as a former ambassador to one of the world's most critical and complex nations, was widely considered a strong contender.
Right, very high profile.
Even by some insiders as having the upper hand. Her experience would have lent itself well to a continued focus on intelligence diplomacy and overt international engagement. So the fact that an internal candidate, someone deeply experienced in the intricate, often dangerous art of recruiting and running agents in the field, ultimately won out is profoundly significant.
Very telling.
It strongly suggests that Sir Keir Starmer, the Prime Minister, sought a very specific kind of leader for MI6. He clearly wanted someone with deep operational experience and technological nous, that hands-on, forward-thinking approach.
Rather
than primarily diplomatic gravitas. This choice reflects a clear signal about the agency's renewed priorities.
So what does this tilt mean for MI6's core mission? Is it a return to its historical roots or something entirely new, a reinvention for a new age?
This raises a crucial question that lies at the heart of Metrooli's tenure. Is it simply a deliberate return to the agency's core mandate of agent recruitment and running the traditional espionage we've always associated with secret intelligence? Or is it a strategic reorientation for the digital age, where those traditional human methods need to be profoundly and fundamentally enabled by technology?
So, human T plus tech.
Exactly. The choice of Metrooli, with her unique background, suggests it's very much the latter. It's a recognition that the old ways, while still vital and irreplaceable in some contexts, are increasingly insufficient for the complex challenges of today and tomorrow. It implies a refocus on the fundamental principles of espionage, but with a highly advanced, technologically driven edge, adapting the core tradecraft for a hyper-connected, hyper-surveilled world.
Okay, let's shift our focus now to the strategic optimism that clearly surrounds her appointment, because there's a palpable sense of hope and ambition within MI6 about what she can truly achieve. The first big point here seems to be the belief that tech-savvy leadership is finally taking hold at the very highest level.
That's precisely right. The agency truly believes her leadership can finally catalyze the deep, systemic integration of technology they've been striving for, sometimes with limited success, for years. And here's where it gets truly interesting and, frankly, crucially important for the future of espionage. Traditional human intelligence, human pilla, faces existential challenges in today's world.
Existential challenges. That sounds serious.
It is. Think about the ubiquitous presence of CCTV cameras, the increasing sophistication of facial recognition systems, and the pervasive nature of phone geolocation tracking. These technologies, wielded by both state and non-state actors, make it incredibly difficult for case officers to operate covertly, to remain undetected, and to protect their sources.
The environment is just saturated with surveillance.
Completely. Metrooli has been a strong and vocal advocate, arguing that only advanced algorithmic tools, things like synthetic identities, sophisticated deepfake detection, and comprehensive pattern-of-life analytics, can genuinely ensure the viability, the safety, and indeed the sheer effectiveness of case officers in this new, hyper-surveilled environment. It's not about replacing humans, but enabling them.
So it's not about replacing the irreplaceable human element, but fundamentally about equipping agents with next-generation tools, tools that allow them to continue operating in a world that increasingly makes traditional, unassisted espionage nearly impossible.
That's the core idea.
And her elevation to C gives her not just rhetorical power, but the financial clout to truly make this happen, doesn't it?
Precisely. Her new position as C grants her agenda significant budgetary empowerment and the executive authority to enact real change. This means she can genuinely shift substantial resource allocation towards AI and these critical technological advancements, rather than just advocating for them from a directorate level, where her influence is necessarily more constrained.
Right, she controls the purse strings now, to a large extent.
To illustrate, imagine how synthetic identities could allow agents to operate with unprecedented levels of plausible deniability. essentially creating digital ghosts with fabricated yet verifiable online footprints, making them incredibly difficult to trace or expose in highly monitored environments.
Like a digital deep cover.
Exactly. Or consider how deepfake detection technology could become absolutely crucial in the fight against increasingly sophisticated disinformation campaigns from hostile states, allowing MI6 to discern truth from fabricated reality, which is essential for national security. This isn't just about making espionage easier, it's about making it possible again and significantly more effective in a truly digital and hyper-connected world.
Beyond the technological push, her appointment is also viewed as a powerful catalyst for cultural transformation within the agency. We touched on the gender aspect earlier, but having 3 out of 4 director generals as women, as you mentioned, goes much deeper than just impressive statistics, doesn't it?
It absolutely does, and this is where the cultural impact truly crystallizes. Having 3 out of MI6's 4 director generals now being women goes far beyond mere statistical achievement or symbolic gesture. It suggests that MI6 has reached a critical mass within its leadership, a tipping point, if you will, that is genuinely capable of driving real, systemic internal change.
A critical mass for change.
Yes. This is about actively tackling those deeply ingrained cultural issues that have historically hindered not only female progression, but by extension, overall talent attraction and retention within the agency. It's about moving past lip service and enacting tangible transformations. The so-called male safari culture, for example, often manifests in subtle but pervasive ways. Informal networks that exclude women, unconscious biases in promotion decisions, a perceived need for female officers to adopt perhaps more masculine traits to succeed, or simply a lack of visible female role models at senior levels.
And that kind of fundamental change needs to come not just from internal HR memos, but from the very top, with unwavering commitment.
Exactly. The power of leadership in driving profound cultural change cannot be overstated. A leader at the very apex of the organization, like Metrowelli, possesses the unique authority, influence, and strategic vision to enforce progress in a way that HR policies or internal memos alone simply cannot. She can actively foster an environment that is not just superficially diverse, but genuinely more inclusive and equitable, where all talent, regardless of background or gender, feels valued and sees a clear path to advancement. This isn't just a feel-good measure, it's an operational imperative.
Right. Better culture, better results.
Absolutely. A more inclusive culture leads to a broader talent pool, more diverse perspectives and problem solving, and ultimately a more effective and resilient intelligence agency.
And finally, on the strategic optimism side, her appointment is widely expected to enhance Whitehall coherence on AI across the entire UK intelligence community. This goes beyond just MI6, doesn't it?
This is a critically significant point for the broader UK intelligence strategy, reflecting a desire for a more unified approach to technological challenges. Metrowelli already holds a pivotal role chairing the cross-agency AI board for the entire UK intelligence community, which, as we mentioned, includes MI5 and GCHQ.
So she was already in a coordinating role.
Yes, but her new top slot at SIS means she now possesses unparalleled authority to streamline joint procurement initiatives, ensuring that agencies aren't duplicating efforts or buying incompatible systems. More importantly, she can accelerate collaborative research and development efforts with partners like GCHQ and the Defense Science and Technology Laboratory, fast-tracking the development and deployment of cutting-edge tools.
Speeding things up across the board.
And the timing is also incredibly propitious. There was an additional $600 million in new funding allocated on June 11th specifically for intelligence agencies. This substantial investment was explicitly framed as a strategic move to illuminate and deter threats. And it directly supports her ambitious push for AI integration across the board, providing the financial muscle for her technological vision.
Okay, $600 million. We'll come back to whether that's enough later, I suspect. But first, as much as there's genuine strategic optimism surrounding her appointment, it's vital to look beyond the hype and consider the critical questions and unforeseen challenges that always accompany such ambitious shifts.
Absolutely necessary.
Because no matter how advanced the technology gets, human intelligence still seems to rule the geopolitical landscape, doesn't it?
It absolutely does. Despite all the breathtaking advancements in AI and algorithmic tradecraft, the enduring primacy of human intelligence, or HUMINT, remains an absolutely critical factor, and one that poses a potential paradox for Metrowelli's tenure. Adversarial nations like Russia, Iran, and China, while undeniably sophisticated in their cyber and technological capabilities, remain largely penetrable primarily through human agents.
So you still need people on the inside.
You absolutely do. These deep cover networks, built on years, often decades, of trust, personal relationships, ideological conviction, or financial incentive, are irreplaceable. They offer unique access to closed societies, to the inner thoughts of decision makers, and to the human motivations behind state actions, insights that no algorithm, however powerful, can truly replicate.
Things data alone can't tell you.
Exactly. AI may enable tradecraft by providing tools like synthetic identities or enhanced data analysis, but it cannot fully replace the nuanced, often unpredictable, and utterly irreplaceable human element. The best intelligence frequently comes from a human whispering in an ear, not an algorithm sifting through data.
So there's a very real risk here, then, that an over-reliance on automation, despite its undeniable benefits, could inadvertently diminish MI6's core comparative advantage, its human network. It sounds like a delicate balance to strike.
It is an incredibly delicate balance, and there's a real risk of what some critics might call hollowing out MI6's core capabilities. If the focus shifts too heavily or too rapidly to technology at the expense of nurturing, expanding, and protecting those deep human networks.
Hollowing out, that's a concerning phrase.
It is. Imagine the kind of intelligence gaps that would emerge if MI6 struggled to recruit and run agents in places where human interaction remains the only way to gain insights. What would be lost? The ability to influence events on the ground, to understand the true intentions behind closed doors, to penetrate organizations that exist largely offline. This raises a fundamental question. Can MI6 truly tilt back to hard espionage, as her appointment suggests, if its vital human network is inadvertently undermined or even perceived as secondary by an over-reliance on silicon-based solutions? It's a strategic tightrope walk where the consequences of miscalculation could be severe.
Another significant challenge is what's being termed transparency creep. On one hand, we've seen successive chiefs cultivate increasingly public profiles, presumably to bolster MI6's legitimacy and public trust. But on the other, MI6's stock and trade, as one former chief famously put it, is absolute secrecy. This seems like a fundamental double-edged sword.
It is absolutely a profound tension, and one that speaks to the very nature of a secret intelligence service in the 21st century. Consider the historical arc. In 1994, David Spedding became only the second MI6 chief in history to be named publicly.
Only the second.
And his predecessor, Sir Colin McCall, famously refused to be photographed, stating unequivocally that secrecy is our stock and trade. Contrast that with today, where Mechuele's photographs, her detailed CV, and even anecdotal accounts of her rowing days at Cambridge have been published and widely circulated in the newspapers.
A world of difference.
This tension between a desire for greater public legitimacy, a valid goal in democratic societies, aimed at fostering trust and demonstrating accountability, and the inherent operational need for absolute invisibility for a secret intelligence service is becoming increasingly profound.
And it seems like that drive for public transparency inevitably leads to an erosion of operational security. How do you square that circle?
Precisely. While cultivating a more public profile might be seen as modern or even necessary for democratic accountability and public perception, detailed CVs and media photos inevitably erode the crucial aura of invisibility that has historically been paramount for protecting officers operating abroad. It makes it harder for them to blend in, to maintain their cover, and to protect the sources they cultivate.
It makes them targets, potentially.
Potentially, yes, or at least complicates their work significantly. This raises an incredibly important question. Will Parliament's increasing appetite for openness, driven by public demand for accountability, inevitably collide with the stark, non-negotiable demands of operational security? How does a truly secret intelligence service operate effectively when its leaders are public figures?
When their history is known.
When their backgrounds are dissected in the press, and when their very existence becomes part of the public narrative? Is this a truly sustainable model for deep cover operations, or are we witnessing a fundamental, perhaps irreversible, shift in the very nature of covert intelligence that will force MI6 to redefine its utility?
Heavy questions. Okay, let's talk about the money again. That $600 million we mentioned earlier. While that additional funding for intelligence agencies sounds substantial, is it truly enough given the ambitious scope of Mechuele's technological push and the agency's global responsibilities?
That's a crucial reality check, and it's where ambition potentially meets the hard ground of fiscal reality. While $600 million is, without question, a significant sum, it's important to consider it within context. Cyber R&D costs, particularly for cutting-edge AI and advanced analytics, are experiencing steep, almost hyperinflationary trends globally.
Right. Tech isn't cheap, especially this kind of tech.
Not at all. Building and maintaining secure, world-class technological infrastructure requires a vast, continuous investment. Furthermore, establishing and operating each new overseas station, often in complex and expensive environments, demands multi-year expenditure running into the tens of millions. So while 600 million sounds large,
It's eaten up quickly.
potentially, the critical question is whether it's truly sufficient to fund a transformative shift towards advanced AI and data-driven capabilities while simultaneously maintaining, let alone expanding, MI6's existing global footprint and traditional human operations. It's a vast global network with immense operational overheads.
So there's a very real resource dilemma here. Without a broader, more substantial, and perhaps multi-year financial settlement, Metrowell might be forced to make difficult, even painful strategic choices.
Indeed. There's a distinct risk that without a more comprehensive and robust financial commitment from the government, Metrowell may be forced into a difficult zero-sum game, diverting crucial resources from traditional stations and existing operational capabilities to fund her silicon-based initiatives.
The phrase you mentioned earlier comes to mind.
Robbing traditional stations to fund silicon. That's a stark way to put it, but it reflects a very real possibility. This forces incredibly tough strategic trade-offs. Where will the inevitable cuts come from? Will it mean fewer case officers in critical regions, reduced budgets for local intelligence gathering, or delaying essential upgrades for existing infrastructure that isn't directly related to AI?
And what impact will those cuts have?
What impact will they have on existing operations or capabilities that are still vital for national security, even if they aren't the flashy, high-tech new focus? It's a juggling act with profound consequences for MI6's global reach and effectiveness.
And finally, we have to consider the complex dynamics of Five Eyes politics, the intelligence alliance. While Washington might be eager to embrace her tech focus, other key allies reportedly have different priorities and needs. That sounds like a potential source of friction, or at least a significant diplomatic balancing act for Metrowell.
This is undoubtedly a significant challenge for Metrowell's diplomatic touch, an area where her rival, Dame Barbara Woodward, with her extensive ambassadorial experience, would presumably have excelled. The Five Eyes alliance, comprising America, Australia, Britain, Canada, and New Zealand, is a cornerstone of Western intelligence cooperation, but it's not a monolithic entity.
Not all singing from the same hymn sheet.
Exactly. There are distinct and sometimes diverging strategic priorities among these nations. While Washington, particularly within its intelligence community, seems increasingly enthusiastic about Metrowell's tech-first, AI-driven approach. Reports suggest that Canberra and Wellington, for instance, still place a very high value on regional human intelligence gathering in their neighborhood.
Which makes sense for them geographically.
It does. This is understandable given their geographical proximity to specific, nuanced threats in the Indo-Pacific, where human intelligence networks built on deep cultural understanding and local presence are often more effective than distant AI labs. They might prioritize on-the-ground intelligence on specific non-state actors or regional power dynamics that require human infiltration and long-term cultivation.
So how might these differing priorities among crucial allies affect the coherence and effectiveness of the alliance itself in addressing shared threats? Will her tech-first approach inadvertently strain these crucial relationships if other partners feel their more traditional intelligence needs aren't being met or prioritized within the alliance's joint efforts?
It's a vital question. Her ability to balance these divergent priorities will be a profound test of her leadership. If, for instance, a Five Eyes partner perceives that MI6's focus on AI comes at the expense of contributing to critical human intelligence operations they rely on, it could lead to fissures in cooperation, reduced trust, and a less cohesive intelligence picture across the alliance.
A tricky diplomatic path to navigate.
It is. It's a complex diplomatic dance she'll have to perform, demonstrating that MI6's modernization benefits all partners without inadvertently undermining the irreplaceable value that traditional HUMAIT brings to certain theaters. Ensuring collaboration remains strong despite differing investment priorities will be crucial for the continued strength of the Five Eyes.
Okay, let's shift our gaze to the immediate future. What should we, the listeners, be watching for in Metrowell's first 18 months that will serve as crucial indicators of whether her ambitious vision is succeeding or perhaps encountering significant struggles? These are the real tests, aren't they?
Absolutely. These are the touchstones for her tenure. One of the very first indicators will be whether she chooses to publish a new SciS AI doctrine. GCHQ, for example, has an AI assurance framework that signals a commitment to transparency and ethical AI deployment.
So will MI6 follow suit?
That's the question. Will she follow suit and make MI6's guiding principles for AI public, signaling a new era of openness, or will she prioritize the traditional MI6 mantra of absolute secrecy, keeping such principles highly classified? This decision alone will reveal a lot about her willingness to balance innovation with accountability in a way that acknowledges increasing public scrutiny.
And then, of course, there's the actual field deployment of the technology she champions. We're talking about cutting-edge capabilities like synthetic personas.
Yes, the rumored pilot program involving home office data feeds for generating synthetic personas is a critical, concrete test of her vision. Success here would be a profound demonstration that these technological advancements are not confined to theoretical discussions or the labs at headquarters, but can be effectively and securely deployed in real-world field operations, providing genuine operational advantage. It would validate her core agenda,
Proving the concept works in reality.
and signal that the tech is truly ready for prime time, giving agents unprecedented levels of cover and deniability in hyper-surveilled environments. Conversely, any significant hiccups or security breaches in this pilot would be a major setback.
Given her background, particularly her extensive operational experience in Basra and her presumed intimate grasp of groups like the Quds Force, we should also be closely monitoring how MI6 handles Iran and Russia tasking under her leadership.
Absolutely. One would logically expect to see a noticeable increase in stepped-up covert action briefings to No. 10 regarding Iran, especially as Tehran continues to face mounting pressure from Israel and deals with internal instability. Her first-hand experience in the region would lend itself to a more aggressive or certainly more informed approach to Iranian intelligence operations.
In Russia, China.
Similarly, we should closely monitor MI6's evolving strategy concerning Russian subversion across Europe, which remains a pervasive and insidious threat, and how they intend to confront Chinese spy agencies, which reportedly now match the entire Five Eyes alliance in sheer size and scale. Her operational background suggests a keen focus on these high-stakes, deeply challenging theaters.
And finally, how will she approach internal governance and external oversight of these powerful new algorithmic tools, especially as they become more central to intelligence gathering?
This is absolutely key for maintaining legitimacy and public trust in an increasingly scrutinized environment. Will she create an independent oversight board specifically for algorithmic targeting? Such a move, even with carefully delineated parameters, could go a long way towards satisfying Parliament's Intelligence and Security Committee, which increasingly demands greater scrutiny over the intelligence services methods.
A proactive move to address concerns.
Exactly. More critically, it could proactively preempt any potential privacy backlash from the public, demonstrating MI6's commitment to ethical AI use. Her willingness to embrace, or at least engage with, external oversight will indicate her commitment to balancing rapid innovation with critical accountability, which is essential for public confidence.
So as we bring this conversation to a close, it really does come back to the core challenge of Blaise Maitrelli's leadership. It's far more nuanced and complex than just the inspiring headlines of being the first female C.
No, it's far more profound and fraught with paradox. Her true test isn't just about the optics or the symbolic breakthrough, as vital as that is. It's whether she can genuinely modernize covert tradecraft with cutting-edge technology without inadvertently hollowing out the vital human intelligence networks that remain crucial, particularly in those hard-to-penetrate nations.
That human versus tech balance again.
It's central. It's also about securing sufficient funding to match her incredibly ambitious technological vision without overpromising on those technological breakthroughs, which can often prove far more complex, expensive, and slower to implement in practice than in theory.
Managing expectations and the budget.
Precisely. And finally, it's about navigating that deep, almost existential paradox. How does she maintain MI6's essential invisibility and stealth, which has always been its core strength and mode of operation, in an age of total surveillance and ever-increasing public scrutiny? How does she ensure the agency remains truly useful and effective globally when its leaders are now public figures?
Right. The flashy gadgets might capture the public imagination, but maintaining that fundamental stealth and strategic focus will be immensely harder.
It reminds me of Andy Warhol's famous quip that in the future, everyone would be famous for 15 minutes. Metrowelli's ultimate challenge is to ensure MI6 avoids its own 15 minutes of fame, a moment of high visibility and public scrutiny that ultimately compromises its fundamental ability to operate secretly and effectively in the shadows. This appointment, then, isn't just a new chapter for MI6. It's a critical test of the very soul of modern intelligence work and how a truly secret service survives and thrives in a world where secrets are increasingly hard to keep.